There was a point in time when I was a very nice and patient person. But working on this game for the past 2 years has been very stressful, and it has sucked all of the niceness out of me. I no longer have any patience left. I've started responding to emails using very harsh and abusive language. I'm not proud of myself for doing this, and I'd like to stop, but it has become impossible to control my temper when I'm subjected to the same stupid garbage every hour of every day, despite the fact that I constantly ask people to stop. I'm only going to get grumpier and grouchier and angrier the longer this goes on. Please stop sending me stupid emails.
Dude clearly has no idea what the Streisand effect is. This is just what we need. Another drop in the bucket that is criticism of YandereDev. Like there hasn't already been an abundance of these sorts of videos. It's not lost on me that this is far outside of what my usual content is. Normally, I often stick to various gameplay, movie reviews, more fun and lighthearted things like that, and especially videos related to Minecraft since that's where the majority of my current audience comes from. I'm well aware of that. So why this video, and why now? Well, for one, I've always wanted to branch out and make more video essay-esque type content on different topics, because variety! And I was going to wait until an actual demo or some significant milestone had passed for Yandere Simulator before doing more of an analysis, but at this point, I'm skeptical that's ever going to happen. Also, unfortunately, I'm not going to be including a lot of screenshots or references from his channel in this video, because lately he's been on a copyright striking spree and filing illegal DMCA takedowns on fair use videos he doesn't like, which I'd rather not have to deal with. So if you'd rather just listen to the audio or something, that's fine. And eventually if there's something I'd like to show, I'll be sure to point it out. So, if you aren't familiar with YandereDev, or Alex as I'm going to call him, because every time I say his online handle, I feel my brain cells slowly withering away from the sheer cringe. So I'm just gonna call him by his actual name. Anyway, in 2014, Alex began development on Yandere Simulator, a game spent playing as an emotionally dead, totally of legal age but not really, high school girl who meets the love of her life and must eliminate several rivals who also have their hearts set on obtaining this strapping young lad before the end of each week by any means necessary. Whether it's setting up the rival with another boy, getting the rival expelled from school, or about a dozen methods of murder on high schoolers. Yay? For full disclosure, several years ago I was interested in this game when it began rising in popularity after some of the bigger YouTubers like Markiplier, PewDiePie, and Jacksepticeye recorded videos playing it. I even auditioned to be a voice actress, and Alex actually liked my work and gave me some more lines to read from rivals that were to be later implemented into the game. But he said I didn't sound anime enough, whatever the heck that means. So I asked if he could clarify, but he never responded, so that was the end of that. But I still kept up with every update until about 2017, 3 years into development. And at that point, I had gotten bored by the lack of meaningful updates like the first rival, which still isn't in the game! But I'm getting ahead of myself. And I sort of fell off the hype train. Some information was also starting to come to light by then of some weird things Alex had done in his past, which were really not good. I'm not going to get into too much detail of his past, there's already plenty of videos on that, but the TLDR is essentially he's got quite a negative history as an incel who has justified a school shooting, described in graphic detail how he wanted to murder his parents, written odd stories about underage girls being sex slaves, stated mentally ill people should not be allowed to live. All around a creepy and scummy guy. Screenshots and videos of everything can be found if you search around. Like I said, an absurd amount of videos currently exist on this particular topic. So with this in mind, I essentially bailed on Yandere Simulator. Fast forward a few years to earlier this year in 2020, and I start remembering this game I had once taken interest in, since by Alex's own original development roadmap, he had expected to have the game fully released by now. And I was curious to see how much it had changed within those years I spent away from it. And the answer was almost none. Like I mentioned earlier on, at the time of recording this, the first rival, which is arguably the core of the entire game, still has not been added to the game even 6 years later, which understandably has a lot of fans upset, especially those who have been basically funding this game through Alex's Patreon over the past several years. Now, I'm not a coder, so I can't pretend to understand the time and effort that's put into making a game, but we can look to other notable examples of other indie games made by a single person or a small team. For example, Undertale was made in 3 years with a sequel on the way despite the creator, Toby Fox, being a mediocre coder when he started. Much like Alex, except only one of them managed to get a finished game out within a few years. Stardew Valley was completed in 4 years and likely would have been finished sooner, but the developer, Concerned Ape, learned how to do everything from scratch by himself. From the coding to the art to the music. The latter two of which Alex doesn't even do, he outsources those assets. Cuphead was completed in 7 years with everything hand-drawn. Just think about that, every single thing in the game was drawn by hand. A very painstaking process, but it still only took 7 years to put the whole thing together and release it. And then there's good old Scott Cawthon, creator of the Five Nights at Freddy's series, who, before Alex could even release the first rival, had finished 8 separate games, several books, and has a movie in the works. These days, Alex uses depression as an excuse for lack of progress resulting from bullying and harassment he's received, and we'll get into that in a bit. But I think people actually started to realize, hey, this is kinda taking too long. A while before that, a few years ago, because he had estimated that he would have all the core mechanics, including one completed rival, before January 2017. But since the harassment wasn't bad enough to take sole blame at the time, instead his excuse was an excessive amount of emails that, for some unfathomable reason, he would spend 8 to 12 hours a day answering rather than working on the game. Instead of adding the first rival and building the game from there, as he should have, he's added clubs, a guidance counselor, cinematic camera mode, a demon realm, a Hitman-style gameplay mode, a fake anime complete with character descriptions and lore, and a useless AR game, and dozens of random Easter eggs. Just why? An analogy I've seen used many times by those far more skilled on this topic than I am is it's like building a house, but starting with the roof. All you're doing is creating so many problems for yourself and countless bugs for the game that could have been easily avoided. Because implementing the rivals last when they have very specific schedules that revolve around them being within sight of someone at all times, deaths and events tailored specifically to that rival, means you have to go back to the work you've already done and change a lot of things to accommodate for every new rival, all 10 of them. And this issue is further exacerbated by what's called spaghetti code. Basically, he's coded the game thus far in a very inefficient and improper way. And don't take my word for it, there are plenty of professional coders who have analyzed and dissected his work, so go check them out. Alex has repeatedly stated that he wants the demo to encompass his full vision of the game rather than only the core gameplay, but that's exactly the point of a demo? Have one rival, maybe a couple clubs, and a handful of elimination methods to get the concept across. Forget all the superfluous nonsense and you're golden. Could have easily had a demo ready by 2017 or sooner. But that hasn't been possible because development thus far has been very unfocused. Alex will come up with an idea for a feature that isn't needed at this stage of the game, but he'll implement it immediately because he thinks it's cool or something, rather than waiting until the foundation for the entire game is completed. Numerous experienced coders who work at a similar rate have made significantly more progress. Even multiple fan games have done way better, and oh, we will get into that. So either his schedule is a lie, or he's a much worse game developer than he's willing to admit, since there is no logical reason why the game shouldn't at least have a demo ready by now if he's working on it nearly all day every day. Personally, I feel since the game built up so much premature hype over the shock value of the few mechanics implemented into the game years ago, because LOL stabby rip stab stab, Alex spent years working on features that could be done quickly to keep the hype going, rather than what would build a solid foundation for the game. That would have taken more time, potentially resulting in interest for the game dying off, off, so he wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen and really ended up shooting himself in the foot. This began a snowball effect where fans would question and even criticize Alex's methods and skills, and he would give a very harsh reaction, which brought on more negative criticism and hate from people who went to dig up his past, to the point where he began to cry bullying. Of course, I want to make it exceptionally clear that I have absolutely no doubt that Alex has received some genuine harassment and vile messages over the years. The internet can be a brutal place, and it is certainly not kind to those who give the impression of a dishonest and misleading person. Those who truly harass him are awful people, and I will never defend anyone who does stuff like that. But the problem is, for as long as he's spoken out about how he's been treated, he often lumps criticism together with harassment and uses anything negatively said about him to portray himself as a helpless victim. Because according to him, the mass criticism contributes to his supporters pulling their funding, which he seems to view on equal grounds with harassment. And let's make this abundantly clear, he is not entitled to anyone's money. If someone is paying continuously for a product or service and they're no longer satisfied, it is well within their right to cancel at any time. There is not a single person who is obligated to financially support this man. As I said, I'm sure there is some level of truth to the awful ordeals he's described, but to paint every critical statement with the same broad brush as harassment does a huge disservice to those who are genuinely trying to help, and gives him a very unflattering impression as someone arrogant who cannot accept any critique. Alex has made plenty of statements about how he's been treated by the general populace online, but something that's very notably missing from everything he's put out on the subject is he doesn't take responsibility for his recent or past actions. Things he actually said and did, and makes excuses, like everything's been exaggerated or taken out of context, or something bad he said was so long ago it shouldn't be taken seriously now, or it's just a few outlying situations cobbled together to make him look bad, when in reality, the only common denominator in all this drama and all situations is him, which should speak to the real root of the issue. To my knowledge, he has never once said, "I'm sorry, I messed up and I will do better." Since if he did and genuinely improved from then on, he could likely gain a lot of respect from the masses. But instead, it's always everyone else's fault for what he does, as seen in his hate and shame video, where he mainly puts the blame on these gremlins for spreading propaganda around, meaning screenshots of him behaving like an absolute fool, and causing his mental health to decline. That is a tactic he often uses to try to manipulate people, talking about how depressed or unmotivated he is to continue the game. This isn't something I talk about lightly in the slightest, because those who have been following me for a significant amount of time know that I am a huge advocate for mental health. I would never shame or think less of someone for the struggles they've dealt with relating to this. But what I do have a problem with is how Alex goes about it and portrays it to his viewers. He's posted about how the negativity he's received, which I will reiterate has resulted primarily from his own actions and mistreatment of others that he refuses to change, is causing him to contemplate how can I say this in a YouTube-friendly way? Commit permanent game over. Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. If the thoughts and feelings he's experiencing are truly as bad as he claims, and I'm not saying they aren't because I'm sure the amount of hate he's received would be quite daunting to anyone, then he needs to seek professional help and focus on himself, but he doesn't. He continues to deflect and ignore why people are so angry with him in the first place, and blame lack of progress for the game on those who dislike him, continuing this vicious cycle he's gotten himself into. He does this in such an extreme way to get immense sympathy from younger and more naive viewers, so they will go on the attack and put the blame for his depression on those who say anything remotely negative about him. Because of course, anyone saying something bad about a person who is having all the struggles must be the most terrible, awful, evil person, creating this echo chamber of anything less than unwavering loyal devotion as sacrilege. Alex knows that his audience is on the younger side, so maybe he even anticipates that they'll react this way. I don't know. But using depression and committing permanent game over thoughts as a way to silence someone from expressing their opinions and giving criticism is kind of gross. People who give criticism are not responsible for your mental health problems. It's like a toxic relationship when someone threatens to commit permanent game over if the other person leaves them. And now they're essentially trapped and have have to do what this person says or risk feeling responsible for someone's death, which isn't the only time Alex has employed this tactic. He's also done it recently with the creator of a fan game called Lovesick, or Love Letter since it's been renamed, that supposedly had caught up to Yandere Simulator in development within less than a month. Though take that with a grain of salt because at this time there is no playable build of the game available. Now Alex has been on an intense campaign to discredit the creator of this fan game, making claims such as, it's a scam, they didn't make anything themselves and just took his code and assets. But, a few problems quickly arise with that. One, it's not a scam. They would have to be taking something of value if it was. They aren't asking for money and don't even have a Patreon and don't get paid for the work they do. Unlike Alex, who used to get thousands of dollars a month, but that amount has been steadily decreasing as more people get fed up with his shenanigans. And second, they clearly have many different assets in use and didn't just copy-paste his code as it is, because from what's been shown, it runs so much better than Yandere Simulator. See, Yandere Simulator, to put it lightly, runs like a paraplegic.
I can't even take credit for that joke. It was just too good not to steal. Go watch Kappa-Kaiju's far superior video.
It is notoriously slow, even on good computers, whereas Love Letter isn't. So this means they very likely had to go in and redo all his janky code. And they've already surpassed the 6 years worth of development that Alex has done based on the implemented features they've described. All the while not even getting paid. At some point, Alex had reached out to the developer Dr. Apis and essentially commit permanent game over baited him. He claims he didn't technically threaten to end his own life over this, but I'll let you read the message and judge for yourself. He specifically brings the topic of a game being responsible for ending a person's life into the conversation, and even if that's not what he meant, he had to know how it would have come across because there's no reason anyone would do this except for the specific purpose to guilt them into doing what you want. It's really not that subtle. Apparently, this isn't even the first fan game developer he's done this to. There was another game by the name of Watashi no Mono that, much like Love Letter, was proceeding with development far quicker than that of Yandere Simulator and was built from the ground up and made a lot of progress. But they eventually canceled development because Alex had a very similar conversation near verbatim with this person, because he couldn't stand the thought of another game competing with his, like he has a monopoly on the yandere genre of games. It'd be like if Nintendo started a petty smear campaign against Sega when they created Sonic because it threatened the success of Mario. Absolutely delusional. That's basically the essence of Alex's biggest flaw. Instead of considering how he can improve to get more support, he lashes out and points the finger at everyone else. And it's difficult not to laugh at the sheer irony and absurdity of the situation because this is how he got himself into such a mess in the first place. All resulting from his own actions, but he continues to dig himself into a deeper and deeper hole. He's stated on several occasions that the first rival, Osana, the one thing everyone following this game has been waiting for many years, is functionally complete, but he continues delaying, which upsets the fans. Then he claims to be depressed and having commit permanent game over thoughts when people criticize him, despite every reason he is depressed being primarily his fault. If he released Osana sooner, even with some bugs, which seems entirely unavoidable at this point anyway, or without features needed for the final game but aren't 100% necessary right now, that would appease the fans and naysayers, at least for a while, who state that he's never going to finish the game. Or if he issued a public apology for his egregious statements, both in the past and recently, some may be willing to offer him a second chance. And it could at least lessen the amount of harassment he receives on a regular basis, and it won't be so hindering to the progress for Yandere Simulator. I've seen the argument that we shouldn't be contributing to cancel culture, which I vehemently disagree with. Because there's a distinct difference between cancel culture and holding someone accountable for their heinous actions, whether it be in the present or in the past. Many people have done regrettable things in their younger years, but not to the extent of plotting to kill your family and attempting to justify the deaths of many innocent people. It's particularly disappointing how he has the attitude of, I don't remember doing it, therefore it didn't happen. But if it did happen, I was just an edgy kid. Again, refusing to take responsibility while trying to push the narrative that he's changed and a good person now, despite the multitude of evidence to the contrary. The good does not erase the bad, and there is no expiration date on this sort of atrocious behavior. Alex can't ignore the past when it continues to manifest itself in his current interactions that are often on prominent display. The method of claiming that he was a different person back then and he's a nice guy now tends to not be very effective when he's shown time after time that this isn't just a few isolated incidents. Rather, a recurring pattern of problematic behavior still exhibited to this day, which many people, including myself, have tried to reach out to him to help him understand why what he's doing is wrong. But his pride and ego won't allow him to take advice from the masses or even those who know better and have far more experience than he does. And he is determined to continue creating the game his way, no matter how illogical it is or how little sense it makes, and acting in such a way that will undoubtedly only succeed in tarnishing his reputation until Yandere Simulator is dead before it can be fully realized. I don't doubt the likely possibility that he's in way over his head with this project, but he's got to put aside his pride and admit he's overwhelmed and ask for help. Not just with the game, but psychological help. Talking about the situation the way he does just seems like it's being done for attention and pity. Even the explanations he tries to give for debunking the majority of claims made against him, it's often a warped sense of reality, if not an outright lie. Alex clearly doesn't have the motivation to get Yandere Simulator done, but he can't quit. This is his paycheck, and while he's not making nearly as much as he used to anymore, he still gets a couple $1,000s a month from Patreon, and God knows how much from YouTube ad revenue. Though a decent amount of his videos are probably demonetized, but even a couple with ads would still get him a nice chunk of change with the millions of views he gets. But he can't give up because then all his donations and support suddenly disappear. He has a decent idea for a game, but his attitude is severely hindering its potential success. When you're the sole face of a game, you have to maintain a better attitude and public image, or it reflects poorly on your work. I really believe that if popular YouTubers hadn't discovered this game and caused so many people to flock to it, thereby giving Alex a sudden massive audience, he probably would have only gotten a handful of years into game development before he got bored or lost motivation and quit. We may see Osana eventually, but honestly, I doubt Yandere Simulator is ever going to be finished. It seems very likely Alex will become overwhelmed either by his ineptitude in terms of game creation and development, or by all the hate he receives from angry and impatient fans who honestly at this point have very valid reasons to be unhappy. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, Alex's lack of coding skills don't matter at all, and it's very much a non-issue. Personally, I don't care if he ever finishes the game, but it does lend to the more substantial problem of him gaslighting his fans and supporters. Those who have invested so much into Yandere Simulator, either financially, contributing time and assets to help bring this game to life, or by devoting many years to following development or promoting it on their channels to their own audience. In my opinion, I think it would be best for everyone to stop supporting him, and I would encourage people not to give him any of your time and certainly not your money. If you still insist on supporting him, that is entirely your choice. Just make sure you're fully aware and educated on what's happening, and don't stay stuck in that echo chamber. The patrons giving him thousands of dollars a month deserve better. They deserve the truth, and they don't deserve to be manipulated in the way Alex has done. Well, that's my hot take on the YandereDev drama that literally no one asked for. And there was plenty of other topics I didn't even have time to get into, like how he treats his volunteers and has stolen various work, how he's wasted his Patreon money in stupid ways, how he blackmailed a smaller YouTuber into purging his channel of all criticism videos. Yeah, this whole thing is kind of a mess. Maybe there will be a part 2 in the future. I can't say for sure at this time, though I suppose it'll depend on how this video is received. So thank you to everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're new to my channel, I have tons of other gaming content you're welcome to check out, and it would be very much appreciated. I'd also like to give a special thank you to my executive producer tier patrons, Doggy Zarbe, Doha, Emily, Kyle, and Tinix Fan. Thank you everyone once again, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye!